This story isn't over. It's been going on for 20 years. Here's Chris.
Thank you for the company. I'm Chris Cuomo, and we have a lot to get after tonight. News of the arrest of multiple potential ISIS members has the right blaming President Biden for a porous border. Is that fair? Well, they're picking a hot issue. Illegal migration is a top concern for voters heading into the election. It's not usually that case. So here's what we know. 8 men, suspected members of ISIS, were detained in New York, L.A., and Philadelphia. All of them entered through the southern border. So the question is, how, right? Not illegally per se, meaning they didn't sneak in. Border officials did meet and interview them and say their initial criminal background checks came back clean. So they were all released into the United States. One even used the Biden administration's new CBP One phone app to arrange entry. So if they didn't sneak across, they didn't claim asylum, did the system fail? Equally important, why did they suddenly catch the authorities' attention? Here's an interesting fact. All 8 are from Tajikistan. Now, you don't hear about that place too often unless you follow the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships. They got great fighters. But in March, ISIS members, also from Tajikistan, attacked a theater in Moscow. You remember that? They killed more than 130 people. The FBI at that time warned of potential attacks by those terrorists. So for now, the 8 are being held on immigration violations, although I'm not really sure what it is, so we got to figure it out. What are the violations, and what do the arrests say about the state of our security? Let's bring in Tracy Walter. She's a former CIA operative who targeted members of ISIS. And Chad Wolf. He led the Homeland Security Department for a year under President Trump, a true pros pro. Chad, it is great to have you. Tracy, as always, thank you for helping us out. So, first, let's look at what this says about how they got in. Tracy, what does this reflect about the reality of the system? Did these guys sneak in? Did the system fail? Or did it work, but then we learned more? What's your take?
Well, thank you for having me, Chris. I think it's twofold, to be completely honest with you. I think first, obviously, our border system failed, but it failed because we didn't have the intelligence. And Christopher Wray warned last week that there was basically a black hole of intelligence, quite frankly, surrounding ISIS-K, and that these individuals could come in, not be on watch lists. And we have to remember, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, the largest terror group there was ISIS-K. We lost the ability to collect information on them. And so really, that's why none of these individuals were put on terror watch lists.
So, Chad, we don't blame CBP for this, per se. But what does it say about the state of threat and how prepared we are? Or do you have to give a nod to the men and women that wound up making the arrests also?
Yeah, I think you do. Look, I think there's a couple important points here. One is the vetting, right? And your other guest alluded to that, which is the intelligence. Our vetting is only as good as the information that we get back from foreign countries, in this case, Tajikistan, which is not very good, right? No. The best intelligence and the best vetting we can do is from our allies like the UK, Australia, and others. And so I think that's something that we've got to get our hands around. Second, what this tells you is that this idea and this policy of simply apprehending individuals. I've seen reporting that 2 of them did come across illegally. One did use that CBP app. I'm not sure about the others. But that when they did come across, they're not detained. Instead, they're released into American communities and then obviously targeted and picked up at a later date. And I think that's what's concerning for most Americans. They say, look, why are these individuals being released into American communities? And for how long were they here? And are there others? And I think those are basic questions that Chad, the government needs to answer. You know
there are others. And I know you guys always do a good job of not scaring people without, a backstop of information or a program that are in place. But we know there are others. Let me ask you this. With the benefit of hindsight and your understanding of the system, Chad, do you believe that catch and release is an unsustainable risk to American national security and has to end? And for people at home, you know what that means. It means what it sounds like. They catch you, they process you, and then even if you're not supposed to be here, they give you a trial date and they let you go.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's certainly risky. And look, you can treat different populations differently, right? Single adults that are coming across that border that are military age from certain countries and having them released into American communities is vastly different than perhaps releasing children or families. And so there are some differences that you can make, right? There's limited detention capability and space, right? Which is why the Remain in Mexico program was put in place under President Trump. So there's a variety of different options to explore here. But this idea that you're going to have millions come over in the last several years and the vast majority of those being released into American communities, I don't think is the right approach. And I think there's a number of public safety and national security concerns there.
One more quick thing, and then I'm coming to you, Tracy. I got a couple of questions for you. But Chad, before I do that, we're talking about politics now, okay? And Biden is on the hook for the southern border because he undid so many executive actions early on and sent messaging that certainly increased flow and then did nothing about it for years and is now blaming Congress for not working on it with him. We see the politics and we know why he was giving a nod to his left flank and going easy on the southern border. But in terms of the reality of what has to happen, what needs to happen at the southern border for the country to be safe from terrorism and for people who are coming here for bad reason, not for a job?
Sure. So politics aside, you need a different approach along that border, and you got to bring some deterrence back, and you got to bring consequences back. Individuals that are crossing, such as in the San Diego sector, and you just see them walking across the border, they have no fear of consequence. They have no fear of being returned back to their home countries or put in other detention settings. And so they're going to keep coming across. They're going to keep being released. And when they call back home to their friends and family and tell them more and more and more is coming. And so you've got to bring some deterrence and hold people accountable for breaking the law. I think that's where you start.
So, Tracy, you guys always had such a hard time because ISIS people sail through all the time because there's such bad home country information, as you heard from Chad. What do these guys want with us right now? Why would ISIS be looking to gear up? We're not messing around in the region, or are they going to side with the Iran-backed proxies?
Well, that's an interesting question because actually ISIS-K and Iran don't get along. They're the ones that bombed Soleimani's funeral service. And so it's really interesting to see that this is happening. You know, like you mentioned before, they really were just contained into the Afghan-Pakistan region, but a lot of their leaders were actually expelled from Afghanistan into Tajikistan and into Uzbekistan. And as a result, and the success that they've had in Germany, in Europe, and in other places, they are gaining confidence. And that is why I think that they had dispersed into the U.S. because they were trying to attack us.
So do you believe that we're entering a renewed era of terrorism because of what's happening in the region and just opportunistic bad guys, Tracy?
Look, in my opinion, and I try not to be an alarmist, 100% yes. I think this is very concerning. And I think a lot of times we assume that terrorism only comes from the Middle East, and it does not. And we really need to change our thinking. This is very reminiscent of what I saw when I sat in CIA before September 11th in the Counterterrorism Center and the chatter that we saw before that and the warnings that we gave about airlines. And I'm just very concerned in terms of border security and what we're not doing there.
Well, this is exactly the worst fear. You know, there's a boogeyman effect about people coming across. You know, what I characterize during former President Trump's administration, the brown menace, that these migrants are coming to take your job and steal the women and kill everybody. I always felt that that was unfounded when you look at the rates of criminality. But in terms of a point of ingress for people who are organized and want to hurt us, it's way too easy an opportunity for them, and everybody knows it, and you've been warning about it literally for years. Tracy Walder, thank you for helping us understand the situation. Chad Wolf, as always, thank you for being straight about the need for change. It's a matter literally of national security, not economics, not just politics of immigration. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Yeah. 4 minutes, 5 seconds. Now, let's take another angle on this. The Green Prince, one of the most electric people in the dialogue about the Middle East, his real name is Mossab Hassan Youssef. He's the son of a Hamas leader. He changed in prison, worked for the Israelis. He has a warning for you and me and our leaders about negotiating with Hamas. He says what we are asking for, we do not want. And Bill O'Reilly's here. He says the terror arrests are not proof of just good policing, but bad Biden politics that will matter in the election. And another big story today. O'Reilly says Congress is right to hold the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, in contempt for not giving them information about an interview with President Biden. But they already have the transcripts of the information. So what's this about? Can he defend his feeling? Let's get after it. Well, what's predictable today? Basically a party line vote allowing the right to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. Why? Refusing to release the audio tapes of Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur. Well, Congress should be able to get to hear. Well, they did get the interview. They got the entire transcript. What Garland is refusing to release are the audio tapes, which I suggest they only want to pick through to find examples of Biden sounding stupid. That's my guess, okay? Now, what's the issue? Well, Biden asserted executive privilege over the tapes, and the DOJ, the AG, decided to respect it. Now, I don't think there's a good claim for privilege. Why? Privilege was established to protect the ability of a president to discuss things with an advisor. And I don't think that's what there is here. He wasn't talking to an advisor. And I think holding Garland in contempt is just BS politics. Context. If this sounds familiar, it's because in 2019, Trump did the same thing. He exerted executive privilege. He exerted it many times over things that he didn't want people to know about. But he certainly did it over the unredacted Mueller report. And at that time, there was, again, a party line vote that allowed the Democrats to hold the Attorney General, Barr, in contempt of Congress for not giving them the unredacted report. And at the time, Congress did not get the unredacted report. So when it was Trump ducking disclosure, again, as he has many times, Bill O'Reilly argued that the American people, that this was a controversy, that you didn't care about seeing the whole Mueller report. Here's what he said.
The main issue of the redacted Mueller report is foolishly bogus. We know what it says. All right, we've got it. No collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, and not enough evidence to charge President Trump with obstruction of justice. That's it. Now, are there other things in there? Yeah, there's other things that could be useful to the Democrats in trying to smear Trump. But for the American people, that's all.
I like the casual look. Bill O'Reilly is here to explain why this time it's different in terms of what Congress should get with these tapes, even though they already have the complete transcript of the interview. Bill O'Reilly, thank you very much. I like the casual look there, by the way. You may think about going back to that. So what's your argument here?
Number one, you're jealous about my sartorial splendor, and everyone knows it.
Everyone.
Number two, this is a different situation because one of the main issues in the presidential election is Mr. Biden's state of mind, whether he is compromised mentally. And this tape would demonstrate to the voters of the country, yes or no. All right? And he was not indicted by the special counsel Hur because Hur said he's so discombobulated that a jury would feel sorry for him and not convict him. Well, let the American people see that. This is different from reading it, and you know it. You know it.
I think it's different in terms of playing to advantage. I don't think it's different legally.
Okay.
And I don't think it's different in terms of what matters to the American people. For that reason, you keep saying that Joe Biden is losing his mind, barely can stand up, and is not in control. And I keep telling you, I actually speak to people who work with the president on a daily basis, and none of them agree with you. Is he aging? Is he diminishing?
Not.
Of course. But what you suggest, you state as a fact, no one agrees with it. That's all I'm saying. So they want the audio tape to exploit it for political purposes, which is exactly what you said shouldn't happen with the Mueller report. Hypocrisy or no?
Yes, they want the tape, they being the Republicans, to exploit it for the election. Sure. But the American people have a right to see the tape, to see if O'Reilly is correct or if Cuomo is correct. all right? Because you will see on the tape an elderly man under questioning and how he conducts himself. You don't read that because you can't visualize, but the tape is absolutely imperative for the American voter to make a responsible decision. Now, the executive order is going to block the tape from coming out because the Supreme Court, and they're not going to overrule that.
Right.
It's like the Fast and Furious executive order from Barack Obama. We never found out why those weapons went back to Mexico and were they used
well, it's
in
a great stall tactic. That's
Patrol.
why Trump keeps claiming immunity, because
Absolutely.
the courts will likely give him a nod.
And that's what he's doing here.
Yeah, well, that's what they both do.
Okay, so you're making it a political
Purely,
thing.
yeah.
It's not.
Well, I think it is.
No, it's not.
Okay.
This is a right to know who you're voting for.
Yeah, but you're assuming that people can't judge the president's state of mind. You're assuming that people can't assume
That's right,
the president's state of mind without this tape. They see him all the time in interviews, at press conferences.
They might be able to do it.
Yeah.
You're a little verbose tonight.
Am I?
They might be able to make a decision for themselves, but this tape would certainly illuminate perhaps the most serious campaign issue. And you're telling me you want to deny the voters of the United States the right to see
It's not the voters. I thought it was Congress asking it.
Yes, it is. It's the voters.
Are you assuming that Congress would leak the tapes?
Of course they would.
Oh, wow. So you just believe that the Republicans are just inherently without integrity and would be violative of an order that they're not supposed to release it?
Those are your words.
Well, then how would it get out, Bill?
Know if they're...
How would it get out?
I don't know if they're whatever you said they were. All I know, Cuomo, and I'm absolutely 100% right.
Of course you are.
Is that this tape deserves to be seen by the electorate.
Well, but that's not who's asking for it. Congress is. Just like with the Mueller report, where they never got it.
I'm asking for it.
Yeah, of course you're asking for it because you want anything that you can make bad for Biden.
No.
Just own it.
No, that's BS. That's so much BS. If Trump was bumbling around, okay,
he has many times, Bill, and you've never said a word about it. The guy couldn't pronounce Thailand.
That's bull.
Bull. Okay, let me ask you about something
tonight. In addition to being In addition to being verbose, you're a propagandist.
First of all, you're the propagandist. You're just not aware of it. You have some kind of weird kind of cognitive dissonance where you don't think you constantly argue against Biden and for the right. But let me ask you about something else that you're going to like to comment on.
Not for the right. It's against Biden because he's a disaster hurting everyone.
If you analyze Trump the way you analyze Biden, you would have no subscribers. That's all I'll tell you right now. But let me ask you about something else. You're going to want to comment on this.
I lost 500 listen. You're a propagandist, and I'm going to shoot you down.
I'm a propagandist.
I lost 500 subscribers. Yeah.
For what?
I lost 500 subscribers.
Because of me?
3 days after... No. 3 days after the 20 vote, when I said there's no evidence that vote was fraudulent.
Right.
I lost 500 subscribers.
Yeah, okay? But you don't want those kinds of people,
You
Bill.
don't know what you're talking about.
You don't. No. Hold on a second.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I know what I'm talking about.
Fine.
If we were to poll who your subscribers are. But let me just ask you this quickly. Extra time for you because you deserve it. How big a deal do you think are these terror arrests coming in through the southern border in this election where we now know that illegal migration is a top 5 issue consistently for 4 months in polls of voters, first time ever?
It's a big deal, but tomorrow on the Cuomo Report, I want you to put up how much time the network news spent on the story this evening. You'll see that most of the corporate media is suppressing the story because it's big.
I led with it.
But it's not nearly as big. I heard your commentary, but you have to get the network news and see how many minutes they devote to it tonight. Okay. Because the story will be suppressed, okay? Now, it's a big story, but not nearly what it will be, and everybody knows this, if there is a terror attack.
God forbid.
If there is a terror attack, that emanates from across the border,
it's over.
Joe Biden will have to resign the next day.
Well, I don't know.
He'll be impeached, okay? He will be.
Impeached, maybe.
It's over for Joe
Removed,
Biden.
never.
He will not be able to run for president. He will not be able to run if there is a terror attack.
I think he'll run, but he'll lose.
That the Biden administration, he won't run. You would think that the Biden administration would know that. Yet, even after the executive order that Biden signed, 75% of all the migrants that crossed in after the order
are let go,
are released.
Yeah, because they can't have a threshold. If you're going to shut it,
so
you got to start at zero.
It's a ruse.
Yeah, I get it. You're totally right about it. You're totally right.
A dishonest ruse.
Bill O'Reilly, I agree with you 100% on that. I hate that this piece of tape exists, but onward we go. Always a pleasure. Thank you for making the case here, as you do every Wednesday.
I got one question for you.
Please.
Did you start reading Confronting the President?
I'll tell you, you're going to love this answer even more.
Copy.
Do you know why I stopped reading the foreword of that book? Because my wife took it and said, this sounds very interesting, and she's reading your book right now. So how much do you like that?
She read Witches
You're spreading
too.
like an infection in my family.
That's right. You never read Witches, Killing the Witches. She did.
Yeah, she did.
And now she's smart enough to grab Confronting the President.
She's read 3 of your books.
September 10th.
3 of your books she's read.
And she's a better woman for it.
She's only made one mistake. I'll let everybody guess what that is. Bill O'Reilly, be well.
You. Okay.
You're so easy. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Up next, boy, did you see how his hand came all the way? Couldn't wait to do that. Is the U.S. making a big mistake engaging directly with Hamas for our hostages? You couldn't ask for a better perspective than this. Former soldier, leader of Hamas, the Green Prince, Mossab Hassan Youssef. He joins us in studio. He has a warning for us. News sounds strange because it is. The United States has decided to bypass Israel and negotiate directly with Hamas for a ceasefire in Gaza and for the release of the remaining American hostages. Now, this is weird 2 ways. 1, it's not our conflict, but 2, you haven't heard much about American hostages from the American government at all. But here's what the Secretary of State had to say today.
Hamas waited nearly 2 weeks and then proposed more changes, a number of which go beyond positions that it previously taken and accepted. We are going to continue to push on an urgent basis with our partners, with Qatar, with Egypt, to try to close this deal.
Now, look, I know the Secretary of State. He's a smart guy. Of course they're delaying and they're changing the deal. They're terrorists. This is one reason that America used to never engage with terrorists. So are we about to make a big mistake? Mossab Hassan Youssef says, yeah. His father was a founding member of Hamas. He was by his side until he saw the group change for the worse and became an agent from Israel. He is known as the Green Prince, and he joins me now. Always a pleasure. Good to see you. Thank you for making the time. So you heard about this, and you were shocked that America would be doing something that you believe has deadly consequences, short and long term. Why?
First of all, negotiating with terrorists in principle is wrong because it will have deadly consequences on the global security. Because once we legitimize terrorism, what's going to be next? How other terrorists will perceive this move, and are they going to try to take human shields? Are they going to try to bully and blackmail democracies worldwide? When the United States president begged terrorists to sit on the negotiating table and accept the deal, then pressuring his ally to literally surrender, it doesn't get worse than this.
So the other side of the argument is, yeah, but they have our people, and Israel has been killing too many Gazans for too long with too little return, and that has to end anyway. What do you make of those arguments?
Well, first of all, let's correct this narrative, because Israel is not killing civilians in Gaza. since the beginning of war, it has been Hamas' strategy to sacrifice civilians in order to bring the United States, Israel, and the rest of the world to its knees, begging Hamas to accept a deal. This has been their strategy. And now...
You think Hamas intentionally wants innocent Gazans to die to make everybody upset and come to them for a deal?
This is the only weapon in Hamas' hands, using their own people as human shields, sacrificing as much as they can, maximizing the civilian casualty, because they know that this will not be accepted globally, and it will create the global chaos we are experiencing right now. So the pro-Palestine movement and the anti-Israel movement, the President of the United States and many other leaders of the free world walked right into Hamas' trap. This is the only weapon in Hamas' hands, to kill civilians in order to pressure democracies, and we're telling them that your strategy is working.
How does Hamas keep support among the Gazan people when they must know what you know, which is that Hamas is sacrificing them for their cause?
Okay, this could be misunderstood, but a huge part of the Gaza civilians are complicit in Hamas crime. They voted for Hamas. The vast majority of Gazans, they are on the they believe in the same culture, in the same belief system. They participated in the rape that happened on October 7. They hid hostages. They are not helping Israel find the hostage locations. So to a certain degree, Gazans are paying the price of being complicit in Hamas crime.
Even women, even children?
Okay, I cannot include children in this situation, but also I cannot blame Israel as the actual killer of the children. Because when Hamas hide behind the children and women, they should not have immunity. And Israel has to finish the job by removing Hamas from power and bringing the hostages back, because we cannot afford another Gaza war. So the fact that Hamas killed Jewish children in the morning and in the evening hid behind their own children does not make them immune.
Now, let's discuss what we discuss in private that you always push back on me about, and let the audience decide. One is, Israel has made two mistakes. Obviously, every time innocents are killed, that's something that you wish had been avoided. But tactically, they're not allowing enough aid in. And even the United States got that right when we were fighting in the region in Iraq and Afghanistan. There was lots of aid coming in so that anyone who wasn't an active fighter would get a message that America didn't want to kill everybody. Israel hasn't let enough aid in. Second, they haven't allowed media on the ground in the war zone so that the story can be told by people who don't have a stake in the action. I think both are big mistakes. You say it's too dangerous and aid is not as simple as I make it. Why?
My personal opinion is to deplete Hamas to the worst possible way, not to give them aid, because the aid is going, first of all, to Hamas. If you ask me about the best strategy, was to evacuate children and women, and this is what I said from day one from this war. Get them out of the danger, because Hamas want to use them as human shields. Then it would be much easier mission. But Egypt, Qatar, and the United States government conspired against the civilians of Gaza by actually keeping them caged under Hamas' mercy. Then they wanted to give, by the name of giving humanitarian aid to the civilians, they end up lengthening Hamas' lifespan. All the aid is going to Hamas, and this is making them stronger. So if they really wanted to help the civilians, they would have simply opened the border and let them go to safety in Egypt.
What is your best sense of what ends this conflict, and what is the best way to get the hostages released?
Okay. First of all, the brave operation, high-risk operation that took place a few days ago was a very significant one, and it showed that it's possible to rescue at least some of the hostages. Because what Hamas want from Israel is to surrender. They hit Israel so badly on October 7, and they took the hostages in order to force Israel to surrender on October 8th. This is why they took the hostages. And in my opinion, Israel should never surrender, because it's about the future of Israel. It's about the existence of Israel. And the hostage situation is very important to the Israeli government, but I think the very existence of the state of Israel is more important. And if Hamas want from Israel to surrender, I think it would be a mistake to trade the security of a nation because of the hostage situation, even though it's very hard to say that. So pressuring Hamas, the United States could have pressured Qatar to expel Hamas leaders instead of pressuring Israel to surrender.
Because we believe the leaders are in Qatar. That's why you're saying that.
Yes. Instead of pressuring Israel to surrender to the demands of Hamas. There would have been a much better strategy. And now Hamas toughened their position. And the United States policy brought Hamas expectations much higher. And I think now Israel is having to deal with the consequences of the U.S. Policy. Now to negotiate with Hamas directly behind Israel back is another stab in the back. It's very dangerous policy what's happening right now. We could have pressured Hamas a lot more through Qatar and militarily by closing the border with Rafah, which the United States also pressured Israel to delay months. We could have done this job 3 or 4 months ago if it wasn't for the Biden administration pressure against Israel and allowing Hamas to play everybody.
Always a pleasure to get your perspective. Thank you for giving us the benefit of your perspective and the history and potentially the future. Always appreciated.
Thank you.
All right? But I still think I should be able to go to Gaza and cover it because it's the only way people will get the straight story. Masab has a new book coming out on August 6th. He will be back here to talk about it, I hope. From Hamas to America, my story of defying terror, facing the unimaginable, and finding redemption in the land of opportunity. Isn't that what America's all about? We thank the Green Prince as always. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. When we come back, we look at the conflict from a different perspective of people who are trying to make a difference. 3-time Emmy winner, Patricia Heaton. I know you love her. Everybody does. Everybody loved Raymond, but she was a big reason why. The middle as well. She killed it there. Now she's getting in the middle of the Middle East conflict and trying to make a positive difference. How and why? Next.
You are not going to the airport with a grocery bag. Take the suitcase.
You know what? I don't need it.
Okay, you know what?
I'll be honest. I'm a fan. I also love how Heaton loves and lives her faith. But that's me. What do you think? She made us laugh every week for 9 seasons, right? On Everybody Loves Raymond. There's no contesting that. But this is interesting. In the aftermath of October 7th massacre, Patricia Heaton, devout Catholic, as I said, has been one of the most outspoken supporters of Israel. She really recently created the October 7th Coalition. It's a Christian group dedicated to support and protect and help to work with the Jewish community. Now, she has teamed up with the woman behind these very popular Manhattan mini storage ads, Archie Gottesman. Okay, former marketing exec, co-founder of the organization Jew Belong. Okay, together they launched a nationwide billboard campaign to raise awareness of rising anti-Semitism, which is real, by the way. And you see it in the numbers, but you're hearing it anecdotally in so many different sectors. I'm even dealing with it in the long COVID clinical space. I'm going to tell that story to you soon. So, Patricia Heaton and Archie Gottesman are joining us tonight. Thank you both very much. This is a pleasure for me to celebrate the effort that you're making to be positive and be community-oriented about this. So Different questions for you guys. I start with you, Ms. Heaton. Why would you get involved in something that is not popular in Hollywood? The silence has been deafening in that area.
Well, first of all, Chris, thank you so much for having me and Archie on. On October 7th, not only was I astonished by this gleeful body cam footage that Hamas posted on social media, but I was confused by the lack of an outcry from the churches of what we were seeing. And I even posted on Instagram, hey, did you ever have that thought that if you were in Germany during World War II, you hoped that you would be that good German that helped to hide your Jewish neighbors? Well, today you have that opportunity. And after that, I created the October 7th Coalition, or O7C, as we call it, to activate Christians to be visibly and vocally supportive of the Jewish people, of Israel's right to exist, and to fight anti-Semitism because it is real. And so it's just, I don't know. I think if you're a human being, that should be your natural response to what we saw.
What are you hearing from the industry folks about being so outspoken about this?
Well, our Jewish friends have said, oh, this is so brave and this is so courageous. Chris, I just think this is a normal human reaction, and I'm not sure what people would fear. I have heard that, well, hey, we have projects we have to promote. We don't want to bring politics into it. And I guess if someone's spent $50 million or $100 million on a movie, they don't want to introduce this subject matter, and I guess you could say that you understand that. But generally speaking, I think Hollywood could do more to support our Jewish community.
Archie, as Mishpucha, as extended family, I got to tell you, this has been such a reality slap for so much of us. The tropes, Hollywood, run by the Jews. Guess not, because they've been pretty quiet. My business, the media, run by the Jews, right? Guess not, because you're taking a beating in the narrative contest. So, Archie, what has this kind of informed you about the reality of what was assumed, which is you're just another white lady now in America. Being Jewish doesn't really matter.
First of all, thank you for having us. Working with Patricia has been such a blessing because it's been really lonely for the Jewish people. We expected, Jews are pretty good allies for other people. That's part of our shtick. We we're just good allies. We stick up for marginalized communities. And many of us after October 7th expected the cavalry to come on in and help. That was not the case. When I met Patricia and she told me what she was doing and we decided to collaborate, it was such a blessing. It felt so lonely before, and it doesn't feel that way anymore.
What has been the success or the level of disappointment, frankly, with the campaign, with the billboards? What's been the response, Archie?
Okay, there's so many people who are reaching out and saying, I was wondering what took you guys so long? People who are not Jewish are saying, where are the Jews in this? Jews are only 2% of the whole country. So even if they all spoke out, which we all know they're not all speaking out, not enough are speaking out, we are a drop in the bucket. So most of the response has been really good. Of course, there are people who hate us. That's what we're talking about. There are people who are saying Jew belong in the ovens and, Hitler should have finished the job and all of that terrible stuff. But that's again what makes Patricia so brave, because this is not a walk in the park. Fighting against anti-Semitism is serious business. It's the most important thing, and we are so thrilled to be able to again not go it alone and keeping it simple. That's one thing our billboards do, is keeping the message simple. And because that's what Americans, they kind of need. They need a bite-sized piece, and that's what we're giving them.
Soundbite society. Patricia, earlier, I didn't know if you were just flashing me or what it was. What does this sweatshirt say? Can people get it? What are you trying to do with the organization? Do you want people to join? Do you want to sell sweatshirts to help sell money for the cause? What can people do?
This is the October 7th Coalition, and you can go to October7coalition.com for Christians or anybody, actually, who would like to participate in supporting the Jewish community and fighting anti-Semitism. Especially if you're a pastor of a large church, go to the website, sign up. We have presentations we can do at your church. We have opportunities for individuals to do things like print out the hostage posters and hand them out at your church after service. We have education programs. October 7th survivors can come and speak. We need people to start reaching out to their Jewish neighbors, making themselves available to help in any way that is possible. And because the other side is very heavily financed, very organized, and has been building this for a long time. They're loud, aggressive, and very well funded. And so we, who are the majority, Christians, Jews, just American-loving citizens, need to be as loud and vocal and organized as the other side.
Archie, what is your basic answer to people who say, when I look at it, it's like you're the aggressor. You're the big, strong one in Israel, and the Gazans are like running for their lives. How are you the victim? What's your explanation?
That's a diversionary tactic. When anti-Semitism is growing in America, people are scared to wear a Jewish star. Jewish kids are being told to die on campus. They're being spit on. That is what is happening in America. That's what we're worried about. And I really also would love people to go onto jubelong.org, because you can see us and you can also connect with O7C, because that's what collaboration is. It means we work together and we can find each other. So that's what I would say to people asking
Teilhard de Chardin is a Christian scientist who is a huge namesake within the Catholic Church. And he had a phrase about what the idea of our existence is, not unlike and probably taken from the Jewish tradition of tikkun olam, to repair the universe. Teilhard de Chardin said that we are collaborators in creation, and all that matters is dedication to something bigger than yourself. And finding peace for any people is certainly that. And I understand why it triggers Patricia Heaton's faith, and it's good to see it exercised that way. And Gottesman, you always have a platform here if we can help get the word out about what's happening to the people in this country who don't deserve bad things to happen to them. So thank you each and both, and good luck with your efforts.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for having us on.
Absolutely. 4 minutes, 45 seconds. Coming up next, a little final thought. We lost somebody today. Bad, I'll tell you. You know who's in the NBA logo? Jordan, right? I know people will say, no, it's not Jordan, it's Magic. No, it's not Magic. It is Bob Cousy. No, it was Jerry West. He was the face of the league. He personified so much of what people wanted the NBA to be. He just passed at 86 years of age. He was a legend for all the right reasons. What I always loved about him most was his commitment to the game and also to winning a championship. He got in the league in like 1960. He didn't win a championship until 72, almost at the end of his career. And he won one.